Yes, so shalom, shalom. Um, it is our privilege and an honor to be able to sit before you once again on this most holiest and wonderfulest of days, the day that the Almighty has designed in His infinite wisdom to set aside for His people, so that they may find a moment in time to think and reflect upon the activities of the week, and especially as it pertains unto their relationship with the Almighty. We are extremely grateful unto our Abba for the fact that He has kept us alive even up until this day. As we are all aware, the cycle of life is ever spinning. And just like there are people that are being born, and you see families rejoicing because there is another member added to their unit. So also at the same moment in time, in another place in the world, or sometimes even next to your own house, your neighbors may be weeping because destiny has decided to take away a soul from their midst. So life is all about what we call seasons. So the Bible says there is a time and a chance that happens to us all. And we are grateful unto Elohim that we at least have been able to identify the times in which we are living. For the Bible says, behold, how even the most glorious of lions, the moment he dies, all spirits and entities will forget that lion and they will cast their hopes upon a living dog. The reason being is because as long as you have the breath of life within you, you have the ample time and opportunity to change your circumstances, your reality, your life. And the conduit through which Elohim wants to prompt us to be mindful of the fact that you still have breath in your lungs, therefore you can change, is through the medium of the word. So he spoke and he said that I will send a prophet, I will send a line of prophets waking up early, and I will send them unto a stiff-necked and a rebellious people. And I will tell the prophet in advance, don't look at the crowd because you will not have many followers. But I want your voice to be raised high above the mountains, and I want you to shout and scream and tell the people concerning me and tell the people concerning their actions, and let them know that whatsoever a man will sow, the same he also will reap. And whomsoever would like to take a hold of my inheritance, he must be willing to go through the fire. He must be willing to go through the difficulties, and he must be willing to go through the temptations. And this is the Elohim that we are serving, the one who does not tempt men, but the one who tests men, the one who does not take delight in killing men, but he who, because of his justice, will kill men, the one who rather heals than destroys, but because of his system that is put in place, destruction must come. He's the merciful one of Israel, the one who has looked upon us, and though we have not done anything that is worthy of mentioning, he has found it in his heart to extend our days and our lives. And it is because of this that we are standing here, that we are blowing this shofar or the message. And it is the only reason that you are able to sit within the confines of your house and are able to listen now or later, whensoever you will tune in. So with these words, we wish you all a very wonderful and blessed day. And we will commence and start with this month's, I think, new theme and consequent subject. So, as you can see, we will look at the theme of how to grow spiritually, or how to cause your spirit man to grow. And we will focus on overcoming temptations. We will focus on overcoming temptations. So, introduction, please.
For today's lesson, we will look at how one can deal with our temptations and trials and its direct relation to our spiritual growth. Unlike the modern opinion that all evil comes from the devil, there is a part of calamity that befalls every believer and that Elohim uses as a conduit to purge and elevate his chosen ones. This too is part of our growth, which is often neglected. We will try to simplify all these concepts in this teaching in order to hopefully bring some understanding with regards to this topic.
Exactly. So, as we have been preaching for many years now, and there hasn't been a single topic which we have failed to address. So, therefore, with every repetition of a topic, we always do our utmost best to take a particular angle that we haven't touched yet. So even though today we will look at temptations, which befall men, the common ones, we will also look at the other side of it, because growing is not necessarily always by overcoming temptations alone. And I'm especially speaking about the temptations that many people know, and what immediately enters your mind when we are speaking about temptations. We'll try to look at it from a broader angle, and we will show you how it is also in alignment with the steps of progression which Elohim will allow to happen in your life in order to grow, right? So, what unfortunately this church system or the modern day preacher likes to accredit to devils and demons is unfortunately the road that Elohim oftentimes uses to is the road that Elohim oftentimes uses to make you stronger. So eventually, if one is not wise enough to discern what temptation is, where it is coming from, and what the reason for it is, you will end up despising your teacher. And in ending up despising your teacher, you will end up despising the lesson. And there is no one who has ever mastered a subject that he hated. One can only master a subject and put in the ample time to study it if he understands the necessity of that lesson, right? So today, by looking at temptation from a broader perspective, we will show you that evil is not simply a portion that shall befall the wicked. But just like Elohim allows his sun to shine both upon the righteous and the good, Elohim will let evil befall you, whether you are righteous or good, because it is part of being alive and it is part of our growth. So, to outline our points of discussion, we'll go to the table of content, please.
We will look at the question, what is temptation? We'll look at temptation, trials, and chastisements. The trial of men or of man, the trials of Joseph, the temptation and chastisement of David, the trials of Peter, the temptation that all must face, the proposed remedy, and then the conclusion.
Exactly. So it's plain and simple, very plain and simple. So to start, right? What is temptation? temptation. Read for us, please.
So, temptation, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, temptation is the act of tempting or the state of being tempted, especially to evil. And another word for that is enticement. And the second definition is something tempting, a cause or occasion of enticement.
Synonyms.
The synonyms are allurement, enticements, lure, or seduction.
The example sentences.
At the bottom of the screen, money is always a temptation. The dessert menu has a lot of delicious temptations, or the temptations of the city.
Exactly. So to piggy bank on what our brothers and sister were discussing yesterday during what they call restoration talks. Some people are hitting a lot of point on the temptations of food. Others were talking about the temptations with regards to women. So you see, temptations, they come in many forms and many kinds. And if you are to look at this Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it is always seen as a negative point, right? It says the act of tempting or the state of being tempted, especially to evil, right? However, it is not always to evil. It is true that it is used in a sentence, and it is usually especially to something that is not something that you would want. It is something that we all want to escape, or that all of us do not want to encounter. However, as a counterbalance from the Merriam-Webster, we have the Strong's Concordance. And there we see, first read the Strong's definition on the lowest part, and then jump to the outline of biblical usage.
Okay, so at the bottom of the screen, temptations, also referring to pirasmos, meaning a putting to proof by experiment of good, experience of evil solicitation, discipline or provocation, by implication adversity or temptations, or to try.
Exactly. So now take it up from up.
From the outline of biblical usage, the first definition is an experiment, an attempt, trial, or proving.
Exactly. So first light we can look at it is when we say, okay, it is a temptation, you have the word tempt, right? So it is something you are tempting. It's either an experiment, an attempt, a trial, or a proving, right? So one A.
So a trial proving, the trial made of you by my bodily condition, since condition served as to test the love of the Galatians towards Paul.
Exactly. So the first one, the trial, is outlined there. I will explain it in a minute. So B, the trial of man's
fidelity, integrity, virtue, and constancy.
B-I,
an enticement to sin, temptation, whether arising from the desires or from outward circumstances. And the second, an internal temptation to sin, of the temptation by which the devil sought to divert Yahushua the Messiah from his divine errand, of the condition of things or a mental state by which we are enticed to sin or to lapse from the faith and holiness. Adversity, affliction, trouble sent by Elohim.
Sent by who?
Sent by Elohim.
Sent by who?
Sent by Elohim, and serving to test or prove one's character, faith, and holiness. Temptation, for example, or in other words, a trial of Elohim by men. A rebellion against Elohim by which his power and justice are, as it were, put to the proof and challenged to show themselves.
So you see that this Strong's Concordance, it's giving a better outline and context when it comes to the word temptation. So you see it is coming from three sides now. You have the temptation, or should I say the trial, that you must go through, and it is the trial that is set in order by Elohim. So Elohim can be the initiator of a difficult moment that you are going through, where you are being tempted to choose whether you will stay loyal to Elohim or you will yield and give up. The second point where temptation can come in will be through the adversary, where the adversary will come and will try to make life difficult for you, to see whether you will give up once again or will stay faithful to Elohim. The third one is temptation that is initiated or caused by yourself. By your actions in life, you will now go through difficulties because the law of life stands for either the spiritual man or the beastly man. That whatsoever you sow, you must reap. So when people sow good things and they reap good things, they call it a blessing. When people sow in futility and stupidity, and they begin to reap the fruits of their foolishness and folly, those hard times they go through can be a moment of temptation or trial or difficulty. But it is self-imposed, which can also be how temptation comes about. So we will try, as we go through today's lesson, to take some examples of a trial set by Elohim, a trial set maybe by the adversary, and a trial created by yourself. Because it is necessary to know where it is coming from so that you may know how to position yourself and move wisely. So what you will then see when it comes to the word temptation, the word itself is huge, but the word trial can also fall under it. The word test can also fall under it. The word calamity can also fall under it. The word chastisement can also fall under it. The word punishment can also fall under it. So depending on the context, you can give it another word to specify your specific situation, right? But because all of it, you will usually end up in causing you to learn something, it therefore becomes a medium through which you will learn. And therefore, by learning, you will grow, right? That's why we'll try to tackle all of them. So the next slide, what is temptation and what are trials?
James 1:12, blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which Yah had promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of Yah. For Yah cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren.
Now, let's put emphasis on verse 16. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Or if we would say it in modern day colloquialism, we would say, don't get it twisted, bruv. And the reason why he's saying, don't get it twisted, bruv, is because if you read verse 12 and 13, you'll be confused. Because he's literally saying, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the very crown of life, which Yah had promised to them that love him. And at 13, he says, let no man say when he's tempted, I am tempted of Yah. For Yah cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust. Right? So take that and now jump to 1 Peter 4:12. He says, beloved,
think it not strange concerning the fiery trial
which is to
try you,
as though some strange things happen to you, but rejoice
inasmuch as ye are partakers of Messiah's sufferings,
when his glory shall be
revealed, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy.
So That is why I said you have to read things in context. The problem is we are reading a Hebrew book which was written in Paleo Hebrew or African, and now they translate it into English and Greek and Latin, and now you take words for words value, but you forget the context. Because the correction is that it is true, Yah does not tempt any man. That is the job of the tempter, which is the accuser of the brethren. However, Yah tests men. Yah puts men under trials. And that trial is a medium that he uses to purge you, to cleanse you, and to test you. So if you read James 12 and 13 and you read it for face value, you will be confused. When you start to go through certain things, which are maybe not self-imposed, but you are going through it, you will be confused. Right? So make sure you understand this. Yes, Yah does not tempt men, but Yah tests men. That is one area. And especially if it is Yah that is causing you to go through a test, you will usually see that the trademarks of it is that these are things that are not self-imposed. You may be living and being a righteous person, not doing anything wrong, and then you go through a difficult moment. When that happens, you must check yourself and do like Paul says, see whether I am still in the faith. If you check yourself, spiritually you're still sound. There is still connection. Your heart is not laboring any weight. When you want to ascend, you in seconds, everything is still spiritually correct. You check your conscience. There is nothing accusing you. Then you know for, hey, what is happening now is not self-afflicted. It is not self-imposed. Yah must be willing to put me through things. Then we speak of trials. However, if you read verse 13, let no man say tempt when he's tempted. I'm sorry, verse 14, but every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust. However, when you see that you are starting to go through difficult times and you begin to test yourself and you see that I'm going through this because I did this. I'm going through this because I did this. If you are able to identify the source of the reason why you are going through difficulties and you see that you have caused it yourself, then you cannot speak of I'm going through a trial. Then you must say I'm going through a temptation, which is self-imposed. So you must be in a position to understand the difference. And that is what James is trying to show you, but it is because it was an epistle, it was short. That is what James is trying to explain, but that is also what Peter is trying to explain. As you will see if we continue, where he says in verse 14, if you be reproached
for the name of the Messiah, happy are ye, for the spirit of glory and of Yah rested upon you. And on their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer.
So if you are going through a trial, not self-imposed, but it is a trial where you will be tested, whether you are still in the faith or not, then you must understand that you are suffering for the Messiah. So you will see many ladies, for example, you started believing in Elohim and you decided to put away certain clothing. You start to put away certain clothing. And then all of a sudden, you begin to feel the chastisement or you begin to feel the content coming from your own family. Your own family begins to trouble you, especially our young sisters. Their own mothers become their worst enemies. They take shots at you like you look like a grandma. Can you imagine you are a young lady, you are trying, and you already know you are confused in your mind because life is too much for you. left, right, center. There are too many things emotionally imbalanced, meki here, chocolate. So it's messed up. And then you are at least trying. You try to dress decent. And then your own mother's like, you look like a grandma. So immediately your heart is broken in a million pieces. And you go to your room and you shed some tears. You shed some tears. Right? And at that moment, you can decide to either give up and revert to your old ways and put on the jerry curl and the fake hair and the mascara and the lipstick simply so that people will not trouble you. Or you can be like, I will go through this pain because I believe in the doctrine. I will go through this pain. When you are suffering for the will of the Messiah, then you must understand that now you are suffering for the Messiah, as Shaul is saying. You can consider this a trial, right? So continue reading from there.
But let none of you suffer, verse 15, as a murderer.
However, there is also a suffering that comes about by self-imposition. So he says, rather suffer ye for the Messiah, go through tribulation like many of us go through, where our own people of our own community, they say we are part of a cult. They say that guy has abandoned God a long time ago. That guy is not normal. They say all manner of things. These people are radicals. They have a strange doctrine. They tell you all manner of things. And now we already know when we go amidst people, we are careful because the eyes alone, they betray you, fan. People think you are strange. So it has become a part of our life. Why? Because we have decided to believe in a certain doctrine which not many people can stand behind. Right? So then you are suffering. You are going through the tribulation of rejection by your own. You are not being considered. Nowadays, they make all manner of people. Hey, that is a pastor. Hey, that is an apostle. But you yourself know that should I be in a room alone with you, and should we open the books of scripture, and should we have a dialogue, I don't know what age you would be, but they walk around in the midst of the city, and there are apostles now. There are prophets now. And you sit there, you're like, wow. And they will not consider you. But they know you know more than them. So that is also part of, because being as a human being, sometimes you can be like, Emma, waarom ziet niemand me? But that is also part of going through it. Right? So Shaul or Peter is saying, whether suffer ye for the Messiah's sake, but do not suffer as a murderer,
or as a thief,
or as a thief,
or as an evildoer,
or as a evildoer,
or as a busybody in other men's matters. Yet, if any man suffer as a messianic, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify Yah on this behalf. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of Yah. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of Yah? And if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the wicked and the sinner appear? Wherefore let them that suffer according to the will of Yah commit the keeping of their souls to him in well-doing, as unto a faithful creator.
Exactly. So that word, the concluding verse here, that word suffer, you can replace it with, let them therefore that go through the difficult times, according to the will of Yah, commit the keeping of their souls to him in well-doing. If you are going through the difficult times, according to the will of Yah, you are going through the trials of Yah. If you are going through the difficult times because of your own actions of folly, you are not going through the trials of Yah. You are just going through difficult times. So you must know the difference. right? You must know the difference. So as we are continuing now, I've written down for you, highlighted in gold, and then below we have the Bible verse. So I wrote down whenever you are going through
a situation where you are put in a compromising position that can make you deny or glorify Elohim, this is what is meant with a temptation. Depending on the cause of that situation, you can classify it as either a temptation or a trial. A temptation is often the result of a self-inflicted issue or a rebellious act against Elohim that leads a person into a difficult situation in life. Elohim then usually uses that difficult moment as a punishment and at the same time as a teachable moment so that the individual may learn and grow closer to Elohim. A trial, however, is oftentimes not self-imposed, but rather a difficult situation caused by Elohim in order to test the faith of a believer. This trial is used as a moment of witness before men and spirits that said individual is now worthy of a blessing or elevation. The sad thing about this topic is that many people are aware of the temptations, but pay less to no attention to the trials. The consequence of this ignorance is that whenever Elohim wants to elevate us and allows us to be tested first, we directly accredit this to the will of the devil, and we begin to fight this much needed personal Golgotha, meaning road of suffering to reach one's glory. It is important to know the difference as they both require a different strategy to overcome or go through it.
Exactly. So what is written down in yellow is simply the encapsulation of our whole message, but it is something that we must emphasize, because if you look at the both situations, whether temptation or trial, you see that either way, Elohim has a means to teach you something, right? So let's say you are his child and you commit an atrocity or a sin, right? Because you are his child, he will then allow you to be punished for that sin, and he will use that punishment as a teachable moment so that you may understand, learn, and not repeat the mistake. That is why I think a few weeks ago, when we were speaking about the punishment of Elohim, I said that the punishment of Elohim is your atonement. If you understand the wisdom behind it, it is Elohim's chance that is giving you to atone for your sins. Because it is how you go through the punishment that will determine whether you are a son or a bastard. And if you are going through the punishment of actions that you yourself have committed, Elohim can still use it for his glory, and you will be justified at the end. Because he can then use that pain and still say to the angels that are accusing you, and he will tell them, look at my son. He has made mistakes like so many, but look at how he's going through it. In his punishment and pain, he has not denied me. So therefore, let his goodwill be an atonement. And when Elohim will say that, the spirits will be appeased. But there are people who, when they are going through these temptations, which are self-imposed, their mindset is wicked. They are like, if I burn, the whole world must burn. They're like, if I am suffering, everyone must suffer. They're like, if I am broke, all of you must be broke. There are people, I saw some documentaries, ladies and men in South Africa. They went around, slept around, messed around, and then they find out that they had AIDS. Right? And from that moment on, do you know what they decided to do? They became living AIDS transmitters. Going forward, they decided that if I am to die, I will take as many souls with me. So they decided to increase their sexual exploits. And they would go from club to club, place to place, and sleep around with men and women without protection. Because in their mind, they were like, if I have it, why shouldn't you have it? And those types of people, it's done, it's finished with them. Because maybe that punishment that Elohim gave them, that AIDS because of maybe sexual promiscuity, let's say you are his son. Let's say you are his son. And unfortunately for you, in your younger years, you decided to bounce around and sleep around. And all of a sudden, you were caught with AIDS. But you are his son. How you will go through that moment will determine who you really are. Because you can also be like, I will use this pain, I will use this punishment, and I will become a living witness for Elohim. And I will begin to go about and tell people of the justice of Elohim and tell them, look at me. Unfortunately, I misbehaved in life, and now this sickness has befallen me. However, I will go through it always praising Elohim. And I will let my life be a living lesson to all that do not disobey Elohim. Otherwise, this can also happen to you. And let's say this is your mindset, and you are going, speaking to children, speaking to older people, testifying in churches concerning your difficulty. In the end, don't you think the heart of Elohim will be broken for you? Don't you think the heart of Elohim will be broken for you? When he will see at how many souls you are touching in spite of your weakness. And then chances are that because of how you use your pain, use your test as a testimony. That's where the word testimony comes from. That someone may now raise his hand and say, because of this, you are now free. However, not many people do that. But if you are the type of person who are going through a difficulty and it is self-imposed, you can use that pain and suffering to yet glorify Elohim. That is the situation where many of us go through, but instead of being open with it and using that difficult moment to testify to others so that they may learn, we keep it secret. We hold it and we keep it to ourselves. And when we keep it to ourselves, one, we become embittered. But at the same time also, Elohim is looking at you, he's like, I have no use for you because you are sitting in the corner in the dark, you are angry, you don't want to share anything, so he has no use for you. He has no use for you. And unfortunately, many of us go through these self-imposed afflictions, but we do not turn it into testimonies for Elohim. And as for the second part, the trial ones, it's fine for me to speak of it, but unfortunately, when it comes to the trials of Elohim, maybe 1% of people go through it. Because it means you must be perfect at that time. And Elohim himself must now come and test you. Like in the case of Job. How many people are living and walking around who are at the level of Job? So that one is left for the cream de la cream. And unfortunately, 99% of people go to the first one, the self-imposed one, and Elohim uses that pain to teach them a lesson, and only 1% goes through the actual trials. And only 1% goes through the actual trials. And what is especially maddening when it comes to these trials is how the modern day preachers go about looking at these trials. You are a woman, you can't give birth. You can be a virgin, you can't give birth. You marry 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you can't give birth. You go to a son of man, you explain your condition. 99.9% of the sons of men will immediately accredit your situation and condition to a spirit, to a devil, to the demons. And you are sitting, you're like, huh? A demon has stolen my womb? How? I've been a virgin all my life. I have known no man. I behaved myself commonly. So when did the devil find an entrance to steal? No one will sit down and consider that. The preacher man himself will not consider that. Their conclusion is, oh, a calamity befalls you is the devil. And that is why these trials are so maddening, and many people don't even recognize that when they are going through things and they test themselves and they see no reason, instead of them understanding and be like, Elohim, is it you? They will not say, Elohim, is it you? They will immediately start accusing the devil. And the moment you confuse a trial for the work of the devil, the glory of Elohim is lifted. Because he no longer will receive the credit. And then you will see that in what was meant to be a trial will indeed become a case of the devil. Because you have given him all the glory and all the rights. But if you look at the case of Hannah and Elkanah, for example, she was barren. She was barren. But she would always go to the temple and do what? And be like, Elohim, is it you? Is it you? You look at Abraham and Sarah. Abraham, if you look at the story of Abraham, what a righteous man he was. What a righteous man he was. But he had no children. But there was no section in the Bible where you see, and Abraham was angry at the devil. And Abraham smote Satan. No. You would always see, and Abraham would go to Elohim. There were times that Abraham would have conversations with Elohim. Elohim would tell him, Abraham, look at what I've given you this, and I will give you many more. And then Abraham was like, my Elohim, are you all right? And he was like, what do you mean? It was like, you will give me this. Do you know who will inherit all these things? It is Eliezer of Damascus, a slave, because I have no. So he was telling Elohim, I have no son. I have no child. Elohim laughed and he didn't say anything. He laughed and he didn't say anything. And when it comes to trials also, sometimes you will see that he's speaking to you of things and you're like, Elohim, are you normal? Can't you see somewhere in my heart, I have this pain and I have this emptiness, and you are able to tell me things of left and right, but why aren't you speaking of this one? And then you pray, nothing. As if everything you ask, there's a response, but when it comes to that one, it's as if he's blind and deaf. When you're going through these things, take your time. It means there is something special cooking. But unless you know these things, whenever you are going through a difficult time, you panic. And it is through these panic and desperations that many people have gone through difficult moments and have done things that they can't reverse anymore. So one of the signs of your own maturity is when you're going through a difficult time, you don't panic. Especially when you're going through difficult time, my advice is don't move. Don't take any drastic decision. Don't end relationships, but also don't start relationships. Difficult time. Don't end your job, but also don't start a new job. Don't take crazy decisions in panic. When in panic, don't move. Don't move. If possible, go and seek someone with a higher wisdom and let him assess the situation with you. Because what you may perceive as the end of the world, he who sees far can tell you it is but the journey. I see the end. It is fine. Take your time. But that is simply one amongst 1,000 of the messengers. Because 99 of them will tell you, hey, it is the devil. And it will make you go through all manner of things and you will never grow and increase. But the one amongst 1,000 will tell you, this is Elohim's doing. Take your time. Right? So you must know the difference between the two. So because of time, let's go to the next slide. So the general trial of all men, right? The general trial of all men. The secrets of Enoch 30 verse 12. If there are any questions, let me know.
I conceived the cunning saying to say, I created man from invisible and from visible nature. Of both are his death and life and image. He knows speech like some created thing, small in greatness and again great in smallness. I placed him on earth, a second angel, honorable, great and glorious, and I appointed him as a ruler to rule on earth and to have my wisdom. And there was none like him of earth of all my existing creatures. And I appointed him a name from the four component parts, from east, from west, from south, and from north. And I appointed for him 4 special stars. And I called his name Adam, and showed him 2 ways, the light and the darkness. And I told him, this is good and that bad, that I should learn whether he has love towards me or hatred, that it be clear which in his race love me.
James 1:12. Blessed is the man
that endureth temptation,
for when he is tried,
he shall receive the crown of life,
which Yah
has promised to them that love him.
So people are like, why did Adam fall? And it was all based upon a design. It was all based upon an agenda. Right? Because Elohim created men, and he says, and I put 2 ways before him. And I wanted to see what he would choose. However, if you read Elohim's original agenda, you will see that I placed him to be a second angel. So Elohim's original intent was already in place. However, he gave you the free will and said, you choose. You choose. I will put sweet things before you, but I'll also make you go through difficult moments so that it may end up being seen to all spirits and men alike who amongst your race will love me. That is why when you ask, why this evil? That is why it makes no sense to pray to Elohim and say, Elohim, kill the devil. That prayer is futile. It doesn't work. It has never worked before. It won't work. The devil is part of the ecosystem of Elohim. It's like within your body. Don't you know you have viruses and poisons in your body? If Elohim was to remove all the viruses and poisons in your body, you will die. So the devil, he is part of the very ecosystem of the Almighty. That is why when you read the book of Job, when the sons of Elohim were gathering, they were having meetings. The devil was also there, having meetings. So he's part of the ecosystem. The saints you see around you, they will never go away. That's why when Shaul said, when you are praying, Shaul said, I'm not saying for you, no, it was even the Messiah who said, I'm not saying for you that you ought to take them out of the world, because you know it makes no sense. But I'm praying that you may keep them whilst they are in the world. That's the issue. So you don't say, Elohim, remove sin. It won't work. You can only say, Elohim, keep me with you, that I may be able to withstand these trials. So Elohim allowed men to go to this trial, and then he would look and say, who amongst them would overcome? Who amongst them would overcome? Revelation 2:17. And then he says, he that had an ear, let him hear what the Ruach says.
Unto the assemblies
For to him that overcome
will I give to eat of the hidden manna,
and will give,
him a white stone,
and in the stone
a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receives it.
So because of time, we'll jump a bit, but sometimes people wonder, what is this white stone that he's speaking of? It is just that people always give a bad name to mysticism, unfortunately. But the whole scripture is written with hidden texts, right? So you must at least have some basic understanding of it, or else you will go mad. Because the whole concept of this white stone, that's why I tried to find a fitting picture. The whole concept of this white stone is that I wouldn't say spiritually speaking, but these three stones you are seeing, the white, the red, and the black, they simply, let's say, they signify the three states of men. They signify the three states of men. The black and the white are those that are, I wouldn't say initiated, but are those who have understood their destiny. And the red stands for, let's say, mankind when he's born. Let me try to use that example. You signify a red stone, meaning you have within you both the light and the dark aspect. And as you are going through the process of life, you'll reach a point where you will either be initiated to the light and you become a white stone, or you will be initiated to the dark and you become a black stone. So when the Messiah says, those that overcome, them will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone. He simply says, those that are able to go through this life and not fall and succumb to the evil, but they will purge themselves and go through it, them will I give as a reward, that I will turn them white, meaning I will purge their soul and they will be perfect. That is all that it means when it's speaking about this white stone. It is your state. It is you as a human being being purified by Elohim and being, let's say, received by spirits. And I was talking about the good spirits, because you also have those that are received and baptized by the devil, and they are then the black stones. But that is not what we are speaking of. But that is all this symbology of stones simply means. Yeah? So this growing, as we said, you see, so Elohim uses trials and tribulations. Otherwise, you cannot become this white stone. Elohim uses these difficult moments. Otherwise, you cannot grow spiritually, which is your desire. So, next slide, the very trial of men. Now, the angel Uriel will give Ezra a very clear example of the mind of Elohim. So, 2nd Ezra 6, from verse 6.
There is also another thing. A city is builded and set upon a broad field, and is full of all good things. The entrance thereof is narrow, and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand, and on the left a deep water, and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so that so small that there could but one man go there at once. If this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he ever receive this inheritance? And I said, it is so, master. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion.
Now listen, then said he unto me, even so also is the portion of the righteous.
Because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now is done. Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. There are but few and evil, full of perils, and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit. If then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them.
You see? So that is the very trial of men. And this is speaking in a general sense. Elohim has designed this world to be exactly like this. That's why the moment this clicks, you won't panic as quickly as you do now. Elohim is under control, or he's in control. There is nothing that is happening that is shocking or surprising to him. Everything is going based upon his own timeline. And if this clicks here, you will learn how to take your time. He's literally in control of everything. Even the chaos that you perceive to be chaos, he's under control. He has designated the world to be like this. Why? Because he's a king and he has a reward and an inheritance, and he wants to pick out who is worthy. Let him come. And if you put yourself and say, I am a candidate, he will say, no problem. This is the things you must go through. And only those that are chosen, they will be able to go through it all and still end up white at the end and not black or red. So if you understand this and it begins to click, then your mind and your state of being will be different. Because you understand that trials, difficult moments, temptations, they are part of the walk. They are part of the walk. This very walk is not a walk in the park. It's a walk in deserts. It's a walk in bushes. It's a walk in jungles. You must climb. Sometimes you will crawl. Sometimes you will cry. Sometimes you will feel crushed. Sometimes you will be weak. Sometimes you will weep. Sometimes through hunger, you will go. You must claw your way. So when you see all these prophets and they look so good, and one has blonde hair, and others they walk around with earrings and lips, you're like, wow. They make it seem like life is so good, and we'll conquer 1 million souls for 1 million souls. And in my mind, I'm like, 1 million souls, even 1,000 souls. The Messiah in his glory, when he was here, he could not even find 12. When the soldiers came and took him, all of them left him. All of them left him. And that is after all the signs and miracles and wisdom they heard. You have not even done 1% of the miracles that the Messiah did. And you think that the people that are with you are with you. So it is sad, but you must understand, and this is the general trial of men that all of us must go through if you want to receive Elohim's inheritance, right? So we are continuing.
One
question.
So when is a question of a sister, and the question is, when do you know that you have passed a temptation or trial? Some temptations come at different times, but you may overcome it the first few times, but maybe not the fifth or the fourth, excuse me. And in the case of a trial, is this something only Yah confirms to you?
Good questions. So in the case of when do you know that you have overcome a trial? Some temptations come at different times. Okay, so let's separate the temptation from the trial. So when it comes to when do you know that you have overcome a trial, we will answer it through our next slide. So sister, we will tackle the trial question first, and then the temptation we'll tackle it when we deal with David. So through the message you will have your answers, and so not, please come back. So let's deal with the trial first. Let's deal with Joseph. So the trials of Joseph. Genesis 37 verse 3.
Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors.
It was not simply because he was the son of his old age. It was because of his wife. Yes, it's this wife that he really loved, and not the other wife who he despised. So when finally the wife of his heart gave birth, he was satisfied and he was extremely happy. So it's not just old age, it's because he finally had a child by the wife who he really loved. So that's why he loved Joseph, and at the same time also Benjamin, right? So, and he made him a coat
of many colors,
which stands for promises, etc., etc. And then 39:1, and Joseph
was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither.
So what you have to understand is we will not have to go through all of the trials of Joseph. You know how he went from prison to prison, from place to place, all the difficulties. What you have to understand is, if you look at his trials, when you read the whole book of Genesis 37, 39, even all up to 50, you can jump some chapters. The summary of his trials is that the boy was 17 when he was sold. When he was speaking about dreams, he was maybe 14, 13. He was dreaming. He was talking. But when he was sold, he was 17. When he was made an overseer in Egypt to rule close to the Pharaoh, he was 30. When his brothers first came to Egypt, he was 39. So 9 years after that, he was made an overseer. Approximately, he was 41 when the brothers came the second time, and when Jacob also came to his father. And he was 110 when he died. 110 when he died. So from 17 to, let's say, round about 30, when he was made an overseer, he went through difficult times. What is 30 minus 17?
13.
30. Engineers. So look at how long the guy suffered. 17, you are taken away. And Joseph, if you read the story carefully, he was perfect. Joseph was perfect. Not because of him, he was taken from his parents. Not because of him, sold by his brethren. Not because of him, sold as a slave, went into the house of Potiphar. In the house of Potiphar, being tempted by Potiphar's wife, he could do serious damage, but he kept cool. He went through the house of Potiphar and he behaved himself perfect. And in the house of Potiphar, he was beginning to grow. Potiphar's wife would tempt him, but that is where he learned to be chaste. He learned purity. Potiphar would leave him with all types of money and stuff. He would not steal even one sheep. He learned self-control. He learned to bond and have faith in Elohim through it all. Because when his family and his father and all of the people left him, he was only left with him and his angel. So his angel became his best friend. So the relationship between him and Elohim increased in the moments of difficulties. In these moments of trials, difficulties, people don't understand you. You don't understand that these are the moments that we say you're going through your desert. And many people sometimes don't want to be alone, but the path of loneliness is a necessary road. When you take on the doctrine of Elohim, sometimes your family despises you, your friends don't like you anymore. You're like, hey, what is gebeurd? You don't understand. Elohim wants you to be alone for that moment, so that you will understand that man is but vanity, but you will increase and have an intimate relationship with him. He will make it so that no one will understand you except for him. So in those times, that is where you will learn how to pray. That is when you will learn how to fast. That's when you will learn how to find solace and peace in Elohim, because the world hates you anyway. So when you are going through these things, understand that these are the trials of Elohim. And it is through these moments that you are growing. That you are growing. And when he became the overseer of Egypt at the age of 30, understand he went through 13 years of intensive training. Intensive training. Intensive training. So when he stood before the power, or when he stood before the elevation, Elohim knew that I can now give him this blessing because there is no corruption in him anymore. If he would have stolen, he would have stolen from Potiphar. But I observed him for many years. And as he was sitting in Potiphar's house, he would not steal one thing. So now we'll give him the land of Egypt. Because he was faithful in the little things. Guess what? He's also faithful in the bigger ones. Elohim knew if he was a playboy, he would have crucified Potiphar's wife. But I was witness when Potiphar's wife would tempt him, he would come to me and he would say, Elohim, keep me in my ways. So therefore, even if I give him all of Egypt, he will still remain a pure vessel. That is how Joseph was able to stand the test of time. In all his difficulties, he never abandoned Elohim, but he remained faithful. He kept the customs of his father. He kept the very customs of his father. So James 1:2, my brethren,
count it all joy
when ye fall
into diverse temptations,
knowing this,
that the trying of your faith
it
works
works
patience.
But let patience
have her perfect work,
so that ye
may be perfect and entire.
That is why when we went to the topic of the fruits of the Spirit, and we said, if you don't have patience, you cannot make it with Elohim. It is a virtue that is not optional. It is mandatory for you to have. What is the first telltale sign that someone has patience? In the times of difficulty and calamity, the person remains calm and does not panic. Because it was through all these trials that Joseph was perfected. That Joseph was perfected. That Joseph was perfected. So to answer the sister's question, next slide. How do you know that? How do you know that he overcame the trial,
the temptation,
or the temptation? Now, if we go to slide, I think still slide 10. Now read for me Genesis 50 verse 19. And Joseph said unto them,
fear not, for am I in the place of Elohim. But as for you, ye thought evil against me,
but
Elohim meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years.
So how do you know that you have gone through the trials of Elohim and overcome? Simply look at your situation. For many years, Abraham could not have children. And he went through it, and he was of a good courage. And eventually Elohim gave him a child. So he went through that moment of childlessness, and he passed the test. Let's say you go through a very long time. You're going through a very difficult moment, and you kept the faith. And eventually that difficult moment ceases. And you look back and you say, that was the trial. You can only know the answer if you look back and you see what you went through. And if you did not fall, you know you have passed the test. But if you fell, it becomes another story. So it is personal on so many levels. But if you take the example of Joseph, he went through slavery and he was not embittered. So he went through that test and he passed it. He was living in Potiphar's house for many years. He did not fall to fornication. He did not fall to temptation. So he passed that test. He did not steal Potiphar's money and stuff. He passed that test. So his faithfulness was shown in every difficult situation that he was going through. There's where you see that he was able to pass the very test of Elohim. And eventually at the end, he experienced peace in his life. And all his trials, they ceased. All his trials, they ceased. So there's where you see that, okay, I have passed a trial. I have passed a trial. And sometimes also depending on who you are and what your relationship is with the higher man, as I said in the some minutes ago, sometimes you are going through times and difficult times, and you are speaking to Elohim concerning it, and he's not speaking. He's silent. And then all of a sudden he can come and he can tell you, now I have heard you. Or he can tell you, this thing that you've been looking for such a long time, I will now give it to you. The fact that he will then give it to you means you have then passed that test. That is how you can discern for yourself whether you have passed something or not. So I hope that answers it for when it comes to that trial. So now, because of time, we are jumping to the temptation and chastisement. Okay, I have to go a bit faster now of David. Mm-hmm. But first finish the Testament of Reuben 4:7. Read.
For many has fornication destroyed, because though a man be old or noble or rich or poor, he brings reproach upon himself with the sons of men and derision with Belial. Mm-hmm. For ye heard regarding Joseph, how he guarded himself from a woman and purged his thoughts from all fornication and found favor in the sight of Elohim and men. For the Egyptian woman did many things unto him and summoned magicians and offered him love potions, but the purpose of his soul admitted no evil desire. Therefore, the Elohim of your fathers delivered him from every evil and hidden death. For if fornication overcomes not your mind, neither can Belial overcome you.
That's the issue. So it says literally, he admitted no evil desire. The purpose of his soul admitted no evil desire. And because of that, he was cleaving unto Elohim, and Elohim kept him through all things. So that's where he knew, hey, I'm not the cause of this, because I have no desire for that woman at all. So that's where you can see he was really going through trials which were not self-imposed, but he kept himself and he cleaved to Elohim, and Elohim allowed him to go through all of it. And in all these things, Joseph fell not. So now let's take our king. Let's take our king. Or should we say the king of Israel at that time, David. So 2 Samuel, so now we are jumping from trials imposed by Elohim to test you to temptation, self-imposed afflictions. 2 Samuel 11 from verse 1. And it came to pass,
after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle.
At the time when kings are supposed to go forth to battle. At the times when king ought to be ready.
That David sent Joab.
That David, this time around, he sent men.
And his servants with him and all Israel. And they destroyed the children of Ammon.
But as for David.
But David tarried still at Jerusalem.
He was chilling. At the times when king go forth to battle, David took it. He took his time. He was like, hey, I'm the king. So he took his time and he was chilling in his home, right?
And it came to pass at an evening tide.
And at a crazy evening tide.
That David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon.
Hey, it's not easy. It's not easy. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And she just so happened to be taking a crazy shower around that time. And the king was able to see. And can you imagine? He could not only, he could see everything. So where was this woman and where was the king? Because he was at the roof of his house and he was able to see that it was a woman, that she was showering, and that she was. So how close was David? So, and understand, if David then was able to see the woman, don't you think the woman can also see that the king is seeing? So it's a setup. It's a setup. So very, very auspicious are women, knowing they cannot force you. So how will they get you? They will get you by enticing themselves, by the way they look and smell and voices, to the point where so it was a setup, right? And he saw that the woman was very beautiful to look upon.
And David sent and inquired after the woman. And one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house.
That's the issue. That's the issue now. There were moments when he could have stopped. But unlike Joseph, whose soul admitted to no evil desire, David had many desires. The first mistake he made was, it says, when kings go forth to battle. Now the question is, was David not a king? So why did he not go forth to battle? First mistake. He was not doing what he was supposed to do. So in your journey to growing stronger, make sure you always pray to Elohim that you are at the right time doing the right things with the right people. That was mistake one. Mistake two, instead of going forth to battle, he was chilling. He was chilling. And in his chilling, very strange, but he was chilling alone. Mistake number two. He was chilling alone. So he was idle. He was idle. And you know yourself, the moment, when are you really weak? When you are chilling. When you're like, hey, when you can take the time to look at your phone and be like, ik heb niks te doen, man. And then you start scrolling. You go from one page to the other. All of a sudden, you are 1 hour on Facebook. You already know that there is danger ahead. You're like this. You sit in your home, and those are dangerous times. And you look to your left and right, and you are chilling, and you're by yourself. Dangerous times. And now all of a sudden, I don't know how, but he was prompted to stand and go to the roof. And they say curiosity kills the cat. All of a sudden, you want to see someone you've never seen before. And he goes to the roof, and it just so happens that his type was taking a shower. His type was taking a shower. And he looked, and the Bible says, and David looked, and it was a very beautiful woman to look upon. So he saw her, and something should have stopped him, but nothing stopped him. Because there was space in his heart for that desire. So the Bible says, when one is tempted, don't say you are tempted by Elohim, but man is driven away by his own lusts. That's the issue. Man is driven. So the devil will never come to tempt you with cigarettes if you don't smoke. You placed 10 cigarettes before me for 100 years. I will never touch even one, because there is nothing in me that likes cigarettes. But maybe take me and put me in a house with many women for 1 year. And maybe when you come back, I'm already dead. Yes. So do not put yourself in that situation. You must understand for yourself, hey, where are the natural inclinations that I have towards sin? And those natural inclinations are the areas where you must have things in place so that you can be covered. So when he saw that she was beautiful to look upon, the lust in him grew and he committed the sin. Right? So if we then go to the next slide, now the deed has been done, and now comes the chastisement. Right? Because the temptation came and he fell. Now comes the after effect. 2 Samuel
2 from 1.
And
And Yah sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, there were 2 men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. And Nathan said to David, this is verse 7, right? Jumping from 1 to 7. And Nathan said to David, thou art the man.
Understand that I'm jumping verses. You can read it in its entirety at home, but I'm just jumping verses to take out what is necessary. But you can read the background story at home, where Nathan is sent by Elohim to tell David that he has sinned against Elohim, and now judgment is coming, right? Thus said Yah Elohim,
the Elohim of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of Yah to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house.
Now begin to understand. Look at Joseph's case. He was sold a slave, etc., etc., not self-imposed, but those were difficult times for Joseph. But now look at David. He committed the act. And now Elohim is telling him, now therefore the sword
shall never depart from thine house.
Meaning going forward, your genealogy and your family will go through a division. There will be no peace in your house.
Because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith Yah, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house.
I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house. In other words, Elohim said, because you have destroyed another man's family, I will destroy your family. That was Elohim's judgment. Right? So, because of time, we are jumping. And at verse 13, and David said to Nathan,
I have sinned against Yah.
And Nathan said
unto David, Yah also had put away thy sin.
Because you have acknowledged that you were wrong, Yah also has forgiven you.
Thou shalt not die.
Howbeit, now here comes it, howbeit.
Because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of Yah to blaspheme.
The child
also that is born unto thee shall surely die.
So Elohim now had to switch. If he left David like that, David would have died in his sin. So Elohim now had to switch. I was like, no problem. Because of this, you will now go through years of difficulties. You will go through years of difficulties. And he pronounced unto him that, unfortunately, David, I will destroy your family, but I will not kill you, so that you may redeem yourself. And as for the child, it will die. Right? So when David heard this, jump to verse 18.
And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died. Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came into the house of Yah and worshipped.
Do you see what David did? He did not accuse Yah. He was not angry with Yah. He did not become bitter towards Yah. But when he looked and he saw what he did, and he saw what happened to his family, he went to the temple and he worshipped. That's why I said it is your state when you are going through difficult time that will show who you are. And what has saved David's soul was Nathan. If this was Balaam, and Balaam came to David, wow, what Balaam would have said was, I am Balaam, the one who sees with his eyes open. When I was coming, a serpent spoke to me. And the serpent said, I must go and destroy David's house. So that's why I came running. That's why I'm sweating, O king. And I wanted to say that the Satan is busy in your house. Pay this, give me sheep, do this. Let's do a sacrifice. And then we will make sure Satan dies. And then David will be like, oh, so David's attention will not even be on, hey, I committed sin against Yah. His attention will be immediately diverted towards, I must kill that serpent that is destroying my family, not knowing that he was the cause. You see where direction is needed. That is why the Bible in itself even says, when you are tempted, do not think that you are tempted above what you are able to withstand. However, with every temptation, Elohim maketh a way out. Do you know what that way out means? That way out means a direction coming from a messenger. That way out means you are going through a phase where it is so difficult. David did not know what to do with that case. Nathan came and told him. So that way out is a direction coming from a messenger. That's why when you read the book of Job, it says, if peradventure that soul is lucky, there will be a messenger who will say, I have a ransom. Right? So messengers are needed in our day and time. And unfortunately, amongst 1,000, you will only find one who, when you are going through temptation, will not even speak of the devil. He will tell you, brother, sister, take your time. Retrace your steps. Have you behaved uncommonly towards Elohim? Think back. And you begin to think back. He's also seeing, but he's asking you. And you begin to think back and do an introspection. Check to see whether you are in the faith. And you see, I have behaved normally towards Elohim. He will then clap for you and say, if that is true, then this is from Elohim. Take your time. He will lead you through it. And then you will go home, and even though you are anxious, you will be in peace. But if he comes and tells you, hey, have you done something against Elohim? And begin to search and you see, yes, I've done this. Then he will also tell you, your sins are forgiven. However, the chastisement of Elohim will come. This and this and this may happen. But when these things are happening, let Elohim rage. Let Elohim rage. You stay faithful. And tell Elohim that he's right. Tell him you are right. Because I did not deserve anything. And I've gone and I've done worse. So David, understanding this, that's why Elohim loved David so much, even though David did so much wrong. If you read the book of Psalms, you will understand David. That's what David was able to say, I consider my ways, and I can conclude that you have not dealt with me according to the number of my sins. Do you know what that does to the heart of Elohim? You're like, Elohim, I've considered my ways, and I've concluded that you have dealt with me better than I deserve. So when you say that, you render the accuser of the brethren powerless. Because with what can he now accuse you? Because you are telling Elohim, Elohim, do you know I have done worse? And yet out of your mercy, you have done this for me. So what can the accused of the brethren then say? That is the issue. So David, he saw the child died. He went to Elohim and he worshipped. And he worshipped. So Hebrews 12:5, and have ye forgotten?
And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaks unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of Yah, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom Yah loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receives.
If ye endure.
Chastening, Yah deals with you as with sons.
For what son
is he whom the Father chasteneth not?
But if ye be without
chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons.
That's that thing. That is why you must take your time. Because you are living in Europe, you have a house, you have small money, you have a job, your family is there, and you are crying. Because something evil has befallen you, and to you it is the end of the world. But begin now to consider and trace your steps one by one. How many offenses? How many mistakes? And I look at where you are and look up and speak to Elohim and be honest. Has he been evil to you? Or has he given you more than you deserve? To 99% of us, he has given us more than we deserve. Of course, you are lacking in some areas, but he has given you more than you deserve. And when you understand that, you also sit down and be calm and say, Elohim, you are right. And my hope is still in you. And when you begin to do that, that chastisement of Elohim begins to become your atonement. Day by day, you are atoning because you are holding on. And you are not losing hope, and you are not turning bitter. So because of time, now we are about to conclude. This one, not many people know this. The trial of Peter. It is a snippet coming from they called it the pseudographer, or the additional text. Some are very false, and some have contents of true. And you bring it in alignment with the old. If there is no alignment, then reject. But if you find alignment with the themes of the ancient testament, then you are free to decide for yourself where you place it. I read this and I put it under alignment, but that's me. So you don't have to believe it if you don't want it. Yeah. So the trial of Peter, coming from the act of Peter.
So the act of Peter on the first day of the week, that is on the Master's Day, a multitude gathered together, and they brought unto Peter many sick, that he might heal them. And one of the multitude adventured to say unto Peter, Lo, Peter, in our presence thou hast made many blind to see, and the deaf to hear, and the lame to walk, and hast secured the weak and given them strength. But wherefore hast thou not secured thy daughter, the virgin, which grew up beautiful, and had believed in the name of Elohim? For behold, her one side is wholly palsied, and she lieth there stretched out in the corner helpless. We see them that have been healed by thee, thine own daughter thou hast neglected.
So Paul's seed is I don't know if for those who know Apostle Arome Osai, the Nigerian preacher man. You see that the half of his face is palsied. So he can't move the half of his face. He can't close the left eye. He can't shut the left mouth. It's always like this, and the eye is always open. He can't close it because that half of his face is palsied. It means it's stuck. It's stuck. There is no flexibility. There is no moving muscle there. So in the case of the daughter of Peter, the half of her body was palsied. So the half of her body was paralyzed. It couldn't move, right? So people began telling him, "Hey, Peter, what are you doing? You are able to heal all, but you can't heal your daughter." Just like Apostle Arome. He says he does many miracles, but he can't do it on himself. Just like the prophet Elisha. He was able to heal many, but he died of a sickness. That's life for you, right? So when they said that to Peter, the Bible said, and Peter smiled
and said unto him,
"My son,
it is manifest unto Elohim alone, wherefore her body is not whole. Know then that Elohim is not weak nor powerless to grant his gift unto my daughter, but that thy soul may be convinced, and they that are here present may the more believe." Then he looked unto his daughter and said unto her, raise thyself up from thy place, without any helping thee, save Yahushua only, and walk whole before all these, and come unto me. And she arose and came to him, and the multitude rejoiced at that which was come to pass. Then said Peter unto them, behold, your heart is convinced that Elohim is not without strength concerning all things that we ask of him. Then they rejoiced yet more and praised Elohim. And Peter said to his daughter, go unto thy place, and lay thee down, and be again in thine infirmity, for this is expedient for me and for thee. And the maiden went back and lay down in her place, and was as before time. And the whole multitude wept and entreated Peter to make her whole. But Peter said unto them, as the Elohim liveth, this is expedient for her and for me.
Listen carefully. Listen carefully. He says, as the Almighty shines, this is in the benefit of her and me. Read.
For on the day when she was born unto me, I saw a vision, and the master said unto me, Peter, this day is a great temptation born unto thee. For this daughter will bring hurt unto many souls, if her body continue whole. Now when the maiden was 10 years old, a stumbling block was prepared for many by reason of her. And an exceeding rich man by the name of Ptolemaeus, when he had seen the maiden with her mother bathing, sent unto her to take her to wife. But her mother consented not. And he sent oftentimes to her, and could not wait. But Ptolemaeus, unable to win the maiden by fair means, comes and carries her off. Peter hears of it and prays Elohim to protect her. His prayer is heard. She is struck with palsy on one side of her body. The servants of Ptolemaeus brought the maiden and laid her down before the door of the house and departed. But when I perceived it, I and her mother, we went down and found the maiden. The one whole side of her body, from her toes even to her head, was palsied and withered. And we bore her away, praising the Elohim which had preserved his handmaid from defilement and shame and corruption. This is the cause of the matter why the maiden continueth so unto this day.
So, what a shocking text. What a shocking text. Now begin to filter the text and look at you. Look at you. Look at you and begin to filter this text. And who can understand Elohim? Who can understand his ways? First of all, this Peter, some people can read it.
Read what?
The text. Some people can read it. I don't know how.
You can continue. It's okay.
You can? Okay. So some people, okay, maybe it's TV quality. I don't know. So so look at this situation here. And imagine if you are now Peter. Does this not give you cause to be bitter towards Elohim? And be like, Elohim, what are you doing, man? You can do all these things. And the only way that you found fitting to save my daughter's soul was to cripple her. Was to cripple her. Because I prayed to you to help my daughter, and what you did was you crippled her. And then you told me to be glad because you saved her soul. So if you are a physical man, you will be bitter and you would swear off this God and be like, you are more wicked than Satan himself. And to the natural eye, many people would understand your anger. But this man goes above and beyond to the point where Peter was so dead to this world, to the point where he rejoiced because he understood this world is temporal. I'm happy for my daughter because in this state, she will be preserved and she will have a better afterlife. It's a crazy way of thinking, eh? It's a crazy way of thinking. But this was his mindset. And the Bible and the trial of Peter, it is literally saying, fun, Elohim told Peter, this condition that your daughter in, it is expedient for you
and for me.
Especially that her part. Can you imagine? You are now sitting and something has happened to you. A car accident, or you were just sitting at home and all of a sudden you were struck with something and you were rushed to the hospital and you are now ill. And you are sitting like, who? Who? And you are now physically impaired. And you begin to trace your steps. You're like, Elohim, what sin have I committed? But maybe the one who transcends time and space is maybe seeing a danger ahead where you, if you are in the perfect state you are now, something will happen to you and your soul will not make it. So Elohim then causes a situation to happen and it befalls you. Bam! And because you can't see the future, you only see the now. You are now in dismay. Elohim, all other people can walk. Why can't I walk? Elohim, everyone is physically all right. Why am I now at 20%? And all these things, they can go through your mind. It is a trial. Because the one who sees tomorrow maybe sees danger coming. So he limits you for the sake of your soul. Because maybe now you have more time to build a relationship with him because you are physically impaired. Do you see the ways of Elohim? There is no understanding. But he does everything to the benefit of your soul. Meaning, if Elohim knows, and if you are his, especially if you are his, and he knows the only way for your soul to be saved is for you to be poor, guess what? He will make sure you will remain poor. And that poverty will be your trial. And it is you learning how to deal with that poverty that will show whether you are of Elohim or not. If Elohim must break your legs in order to save your soul, he will break it. He will make you cripple to the intent that your leg is now traded for your soul. And these are hard messages because it's easy to say, but difficult to experience. And imagine here, right, in this whole story, not once did Peter blame any devil. But Peter was literally able to look at his daughter and praise Elohim and be glad. Do you know what state of mind you must be in? Because imagine if the followers were saying that to Peter, it means everyone was saying that to Peter. Do you see the trial of Peter now? The trial of Peter's family. The trial of Peter's daughter. Can you imagine how she feels? So unless, and luckily for her, Peter is a messenger. So Peter is able to explain to her, my daughter, despite the circumstance, Elohim loves you. Can you explain to such a person that Elohim loves her? And the mystery behind it all is Elohim did all of this because he loves her. And that is where the love of Elohim is being rejected. And now we blame devils because of circumstances. And this is where the power of Elohim is. He does not seek to be understood. He does what is right for his children. And most of the time when he does it, we despise him for it. That's the issue. That's why in all things, the Bible says, in the good and the bad, give thanks unto Elohim. This is worthy of the highest praise. And this is where your power is. And this is where the love of Elohim will reside in you. When Elohim sees from, nothing can separate this child from me, because no matter what that child is going through, the child has so much faith in me that he's not able to think evil of me, but he has so much trust in me to the point where even when something evil happens, the child comes to me and says, Father, I don't know what has happened or why I'm going through this, but it could have been worse. I'm still alive and I still know you. I'm grateful for that. Such a mindset will break his heart and he will love you more. But this is given to a few. And a false prophet would bring you to Satan. But a messenger would show you in the midst of difficulty that it is still Elohim's handiwork. That's the issue. So because of time, a very heavy slide, but we are continuing now. So 12 or 11 minutes, then we're done. We've taken you through examples. We've shown you men, women, children going through difficulties and the hand of Elohim behind it all so that you may grow. So now, Matthew 4:1.
Then was Yahushua led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of Elohim, command that these stones be made bread. Then the devil taketh him up into the set apart city, and set him on a pinnacle of the temple. And he said unto him, If thou be the Son of Elohim, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and shewed him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and said unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me.
Before we continue, I think there's a question.
Yeah, so I think it deals with the previous things you just discussed. So some people don't even blame the devil, but blame themselves for every bad thing that may happen. Apart from sins, I believe that this also hinders you seeing the love of Yah in such a situation. How should one deal with that?
Yeah. So once again, apologies if the text was not clear to see for all, because some people can see it, others cannot. It is a snippet from the Acts of Peter. If you just type pseudographer Acts of Peter, you will find it. We will also post the link to that specific story later on, so that you may have it and then read it for yourself. But once again, apologies for any inconvenience. And as for the sister's question, some people don't even blame the devil, but blame themselves for every bad thing that may happen. Apart from sins, I believe it also hinders you seeing the love of Yah in such situation. So, how should one deal with that? So, one should deal with that as we basically explained. I spoke about introspection. Look at yourself. Have you done anything? Then know it is coming from you, and therefore Elohim is putting you to the test, and you must hold on and stay faithful, like David. If it is not coming from you, and you are going through a trial, like in the case of Joseph, the answer remains the same. Stay faithful unto Elohim and soldier through it. And do not hate yourself nor despise yourself, but ask Elohim, what are you trying to teach me? What must I learn out of this difficulty? That's how you deal with it. And you put your trust and faith in Elohim. And you also, of course, you pray for Elohim. I do not want to be bitter in this. The lesson is to become better. So how can I improve? In what areas must I increase? That's how you build that relationship. And through the course of that time, Elohim will never leave you. He will stand with you. He will strengthen you. Your relationship will grow with him. And along the line, he will make things more clear to you to what you must do. So the thing is, do not become bitter. Also, do not blame yourself. Accept it, right? And I think the question, the final answer will be on my final slide, sister. Yes. So because of time, we will jump a bit. So the temptation trials be mindful of. You read about the Messiah, and then take 1 John 2:16. For all that is in the world,
the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. It is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of Yah abides forever.
So the book of Ecclesiasticus, or the Sirach 2 verse 1, my son,
if thou come to serve Elohim,
prepare
thy soul for temptation.
So if you want to serve Elohim, as I said, prepare, because the general trials of men, it will befall you. That's how Elohim orchestrated things. So if you want to serve him, prepare your soul
for temptation,
for difficult times.
Set thy heart aright and constantly endure.
That's the answer, sister. You must try to endure, but you must endure whilst your heart is right. So have the right mindset whilst you are enduring.
And make not haste in time of trouble.
And do not panic.
Cleave unto him, and
also do not forsake Elohim, but cleave unto him.
And depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end.
And then at the end you will be increased. Then I wrote down, every human being
that is called will have at least 3 temptations or trials he must overcome to reach his or her final destiny. This can come in many forms.
Depending on who you are, where you are, what you are doing, it can come in many forms, but it will be at least 3. That's why when you read about the Messiah, you see 3 times he was tempted by the enemy. 3 times. If you are, do this. If you are, do this. If you are, do this. 3 times. The book of John then says that the things that are in the world, the lust of the flesh, 1, the lust of the eyes, 2, the pride of life, 3. So it will always come in 3, right? So I wrote down, this can come in many forms. For all men,
this will include the trial of women.
This is without exception. For all men, at least one of the 3 will be the trial of women.
And depending on your calling, other things like the temptation for power, influence, and money, etc.
If you are a servant of Yah, it will also test you through money. That's why you see through the test of Balaam, Balaam failed his test. He fell for money. So he became a false prophet. Right? So if you are also a called one, he will also test you through money.
For women, this will include the trial of marriage, children, and the relationship between the cares of the world and Elohim.
And for women, one of the trials that all of them will face is, do they really love Elohim? All of them will go through that, because 99% of women only believe because of their husband. 99% of women, If the husband is Muslim, she will become Muslim. If the husband is Punjab, if the husband is an atheist, 99% of women, their faith stands upon the shoulders of their men. So it is difficult for them to take a personal decision of their own. So you will see that when they are married or if they have children, they have no time for Elohim. So that will also be one of the trials. Do you serve Elohim for Elohim, or were you just swimming in the pool of Elohim, therefore you are swimming? So that will be also their challenge that many people or many women will face. So I cannot really go into this too much, but just identify these 3 trials for yourself. These are things that will happen to many souls. And when you're going through it, be it a temptation or be it a trial, think of the lessons that we have taken from Joseph, David, Peter, and stuff, and begin to apply it. You either endure the temptation or you endure the trial, but you must endure it with your heart all right. You must endure it keeping faith in Elohim. You must endure it and staying and cleaving and not running away from Elohim. That is the only way you can go through it. And you must endure it whilst also, don't forget, let your experience be a lesson to others. Do not hide your experiences. Use it to glorify Elohim so that other people will see your difficulty and be like, look at what he went through, but he held on. And that will inspire many to also do the same. That's what Peter meant or Paul meant when he said, ye are now living epistles, seen and read of all men. If Elohim knows that you will use that pain to glorify him, he will make sure that you have a story to tell. That's the key, right? So because of time, we are going. The remedy, I think 5 minutes we're done. So the remedy, 1 John 2:15. Do not love
the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. It is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of the Father abides forever. James 1:12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which Yah hath promised to them that love him.
Timothy 6:6.
But reverence with contentment is great gain.
Reverence simply means the fear of Yah. But the fear of Yah with contentment
is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts.
This riches is not simply riches as in money. For someone who's 100% physically able, it is a riches. And because you are physically able, you are able to go outside and smoke. But if you were impaired, you see, so this richness is not simply money. Those that are able to do all things are susceptible to many sins. That's the issue.
And they fall into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. But thou, O man of Yah, flee these things and follow after righteousness, reverence, faith, love, patience, and meekness.
So the key is verse 6:6 for 1 Timothy. Be content and in the fear of Yah. Meaning whatsoever you are going through, always be grateful unto Yah that you are going through things and that you are still alive. That is the most important thing. And then there is this prayer. I think I spoke of it once, but now I've been able to find it for you. It's called the serenity prayer. It means the prayer of a person that is sober. Right? So read the prayer for us, Adike.
Elohim, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. It's
very key. It's very key. This is one of the best prayers I've come across. He says, grant me the serenity, the clear-mindedness to accept the things that I cannot change. Give me the courage to change the things which I can change. And give me the wisdom to know the difference.
Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking, as he did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it.
That's sometimes the error we make. We suppose and think that this world ought to be perfect, not knowing that this world to Elohim, it is a worthless world. Because if this world was perfect, Elohim would not have allowed his son to suffer in this world. And that's why when his son even came to this world, he said, this world is not mine. So when you are living in this world, you must understand it is a troublesome world. So when you find at least some peace in this world, you ought to be content because anything could have happened. And that is what this prayer it is saying. Go ahead. So he's saying, that's key. Taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it.
Trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next.
This is a perfect prayer. Perfect prayer. So I give this also to that sister. You can meditate on these words and this prayer. It will help a lot. So the conclusion.
We have looked at how Elohim uses the difficult situations in our lives in order to mold us and make us better. Note that I said that the trials and temptations ought to make us better and not bitter. We have also seen how Joseph and Peter went through the trials set before them by Elohim. We furthermore looked at David and how he did not lose faith in Elohim even in his hour of temptation, and he learned his lesson afterward. We looked at the necessity of temptations and trials in our lives and how we ought to be prepared at this part of the journey. And
as this is part
of the journey, and no one will be exempted. To conclude, we looked at an important prayer that we may recycle to bring about a mindset shift that is needed to always be content and grateful. 1 Peter 4:12, Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice inasmuch as ye are partakers of Messiah's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy. Wherefore, let them that suffer according to the will of Yah commit the keeping of their souls to him in well-doing, as unto a faithful creator.
Yes. So thank you very much for your time. We'll post the link of the Acts of Peter in the chat so you may have it. May Yah keep you all and up until the next time. Shalom, shalom, shalom.